Hi there, my name's Steve, and you are tuned into and listening to the Go Football podcast. So, this is the podcast where I talk all about grassroots football, whether you are a parent, player, referee, just got to love the game, sit tight, you're in the right place. So, on the lineup this week, we'll be talking about something that I've not spoke about before, and that is the pressure of being a star player. Now, we've probably all got a player in our team that is like this. Yeah, being the star player, the one that everyone talks about, the one that everyone expects to get the goals, change the games, and carry the team. But today, I'll also be asking the question, what pressure does it actually put on young players? Because being the best player isn't always easy. So, let's cue the whistle, let's get into it. Oh, so big welcome back. Thanks for coming back to the podcast. Thanks for listening. And yeah, this week, something a little bit different. Now we're at the end of the season. So yeah, we already know what we're talking about with these kind of players and what today is going to be about, because today I'll be talking about the star players, the best players in the team, and kind of what that sort of that means for a lot of those players, because don't really discuss it too much. I mean, look, we already know that there's always those players that we expect to score the goals that we always feel best at. Every time that coaches make teams in training, it's always, oh, it's not fair. They've got so and so in their team, and they're the kind of players that are kind of relied on the whole team. So yeah, I wanted to do a little bit of a podcast just on those kind of players, because I don't think that being the best player is always the easiest thing to have and to be and to carry a whole team, depending on the different age groups. We get these best players from sort of like under sevens all the way through to under 18s in teams. But, like, how does it kind of happen? How do players become like the star player, I suppose? I mean, a lot of the time it's probably going to happen naturally. We're going to have a player that is just naturally good, athletic, maybe really just good vision, being able to see the things, being able to read the game really well, game intelligence really, really high, but probably puts in a lot more effort, probably ends up watching more football, actually probably going and watching other people play football, probably has every time they get home, they're straight in the garden, kicking a ball, doing all the different things that you're probably expecting to do too. But then you also get the opposite side of that too, which is sometimes you will get some players, and some players will develop a bit earlier, like physically, technically, mentally, but, all of a sudden, what you generally can find, or what we can find a lot of the time with these players, is that all of a sudden we've got teammates that are relying on these players to turn up. We've also got, things like coaches, they're building teams around a set player, or a set system around one player. I mean, what happens if that player is not there? We've also got parents that are also talking about them all the time. So, I think that sometimes, yes, it will happen naturally. I think that sometimes it can happen very quick, and yeah, everyone kind of knows who that player is in the team. Even sometimes you know about the opposition players. You know who their star player is before you even turn up there. Maybe you played them earlier on in the season or something like that, and then maybe you turn up and be like, oh look, that number 6 or that number 7 or that number 8 player, he's always really, really good. He's just excellent all the time as well. We've really got to try and work out how we're going to try and contain that kind of players. But I think that for some players, and some teams, it can very, very quickly turn into that player is that the solution to every problem. It is always pass it through so and so, pass the ball to them. They'll win the ball, they'll go and do this, they'll go and do that. They'll be box to box, especially in like 5-a-side, 7-a-side, maybe even 9-a-side. You get some really good box to box players in there, but they become the solution for like every attack. They become, every week we're just relying on them to go and do the right things for the team all of the time. And that sometimes that can be a bit of a problem, one for the rest of the team. But they also get in loads of expectations. Just think of the pressure that could put on a young player that's maybe, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, something like that. Um, Maybe even a little bit older, when they start realizing that they're the player, and they start realizing and start feeling that expectation of being known as the best player, knowing that, everyone else knows that they're going to be a great player too in the teams they're playing against, knowing that they're going to be turning up and that every week they're going to be taking an extra kick to the ankles. They're going to be taking an extra push in the back, to try and put them off the game all the way through. Can have a bit of a toll on some players. So, the psychological pressures for some of these star players that we have in our teams can be quite big. I mean, look, research has already shown that, the expectations can lead to things like burnout, fear of like some of the players failing, not trying new things. Um, you know, probably not getting on with the rest of their team quite as well, maybe getting frustrated with them, maybe a little bit of anxiety. If they are losing, they may think that all that pressure is all on them and the whole game is being lost because of them, because sometimes they've been able to turn up and, yeah, win the ball, go down, drive forward with it, score goals, get out of trouble. We might be losing 3-1. They come on the pitch. All of a sudden, it's 4-3, it's 5-3, it's 6-3, it's 7-3, and they're the main player in all of that. And I think that for some players, yeah, it can have a bit of a toll on them if they're all of a sudden they're not able to do that. Maybe they're thinking, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe that could add some extra pressure on there, and psychologically, it can give them a real burnout for some players. And I think that for the best thing to do with some of these players is we need to protect them as much as what we can do, but we also need to be fair within the whole team, and not just, I don't mean just fair like things like equal play time, bring them off. That's not what I mean by that. What I'm really meaning by it is that we can share some responsibility around for some of those players as well. Because, as soon as players constantly hear things like, we need you to stay, you're going to save us, you're our best player, the amount of extra pressure it can give them is loads. Maybe we can say, look, you are our best player as well. We've got a really good defender, though. We've really got a good attacker as well. Let's get the ball out wide. You can help support play there. We can help support play here. We can defend like this. Everyone's got to come back rather than just the one player making the challenge, running through everyone and scoring goals and, or something along those lines. But yeah, I think that sometimes that pressure can sometimes create a bit of fear within the team, that if that player isn't there, what we're doing, what we're turning up for. And that can be a bit of a problem. And I think there's probably some other hidden problems that we can also see from having some of the best players, like I say, afraid to fail as well. Frustration with other teammates, if they feel like they're doing everything all of the time, and they've got some players that are missing open goals or letting goals in. If they've got a goalkeeper that, sometimes should they think that it should be saving some of those goals, or not being able to pass around players, or not being able to pass to them, or pass into the opposition instead, or whatever it is. But I think that they can feel like they're over relied on, and I think when you start feeling like you're over relied on, again, extra pressure. Well, what does extra pressure give you, and what does that do for some players? One, it can make them less creative. I think it can also add to the way that they play the game. Like, do they play the game with freedom? Do they play it fearlessly? Do they play it with a bit of fun in mind too? Are they able to try new things? Probably not. If they are feeling all that extra pressure, they're going to be thinking, oh gosh, every time I get the ball, I'm going to try and go one-on-one with everyone. And then all of a sudden, if they're against another player that is equally as good, which every team has a player that's probably equally as good as your best player. I think, everyone's got a best player on both teams. Sometimes there are some standouts that, no one can get near. But, even from myself before, I've, had teams before where we've noticed that there's one player and, they were just like lightning fast. So we just man mark that player as well. And, the player that we used at that time as well, she was quick, fast, aggressive, probably not the best technical or anything like that, but just one of those players that could really upset one of their best players. And we did that to try and combat them. And that player got really, really frustrated really quick, ended up coming off. And then it was a bit more of an open game after that too. But, I think it's very, very dangerous in having one player and having everything going through that one player. Not just, like I said, not just because of the pressure or anything like that, but it's dangerous for team development. It's dangerous for confidence within the whole team. That player's not there, what happens? But then also long-term growth of that team. How is that affected if we are relying on a star player all of the time? Look, I think it's great that we've got star players in teams. And everyone needs one of those star players. In fact, if used correctly, that one player and their skill of being better than the rest of their team can really raise the rest of their team if done correctly. Because the only way to get better at something generally is to play with people that are probably a little bit better than you, which is why so many people play up age groups, or they play against players that are technically better than them. Sometimes you will find some coaches, and I think they do the right thing, is that they'll go and find let's say they're Division 5, they'll go and find a Division 2 team to go and play against, knowing that they're probably going to get beat, but knowing that they're probably going to be stronger, or maybe go and playing against a team that's, in friendlies, because there's going to be a lot of friendlies at the moment, maybe playing against a team that's a friendly, but an age group up in the bottom divisions, purely because they want players that are going to be probably a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger to play against. So you can get different things out of those. And I think that sometimes that's really good for team growth. And it also means that that one player is also getting a better challenge out of things as well. So how can we really help these star players? Because, like I say, we're looking at star players. We want to help them as much as what we can do. Look, I suppose reduce the amount of stress that they can have in the game. Not that all games are going to be stressful, and a lot of the games are also going to be done at different age groups, going to have different things. Like I said, like a young player that is going to go through their growth, be the tallest, be the most dominant player at early age groups might be seen as that star player. That's great. They might be able to go from box to box. They might be able to do all of those different things, but also just giving them help and support around and letting them know that, we can spread the responsibility around a little bit. We can rotate the leadership too. We know maybe we'll have like different captains on different days rather than having your best player as the captain because they are the best player. Have different captains each day. Encourage them to talk, communicate, and doing all of those kind of things too, so that that player can play a bit more freely, have a bit more fun, and actually play the game that they want to be able to play, as opposed to a game that they think that they've got to play because maybe coaches, parents, and other players maybe are putting that pressure on someone. But support some of their decision making sometimes. So if they are making passes to players that are maybe not quite as good, or they know that are probably going to lose the ball, just let them know, look, that's still fine to do. And when you're ready to go one-on-one with someone, you can do all of those things as well. I think also praise the effort that they're putting in. So sometimes I have found before with some teams, got some players that are absolutely brilliant players, like amazing players, but they don't have to work as hard because they're not playing against players that are quite as hard. A little bit like when I'm playing against the Go Little footballers. They're 2 to 4 years old, so it's I'm only just better than some of them. But it's a little bit easier for me to be able to play against those. And, your better players, they might not be working as hard as what they need to work. Well, what does that do? Well, probably stunting their development too. And I think that can put them into a bit of a false sense of security. If they were to then move to another team of players that are maybe better, maybe looking at development centres, academies, those kind of things, being scouted out as being one of the best players in the team, maybe that's a bit of a false sense of security for them as well. Maybe they've not been working as hard as what they could have worked purely because they never really needed to and never had to put the effort in that maybe all the other players would have had to put in. But also the rest of the players maybe also not putting the effort that they need to put into a game to develop and become better players, because they're always thinking, we'll play everything through this one player because that's how the coach wants us to play. That's all the parents are constantly saying. That's what we think is probably going to be best too. So yeah, it can really change a lot of that. So I do think praise the effort that players are putting in, and maybe even say to some of these best players as well, I think you can run a bit faster there. I think we can do a little bit more there. I think that we could have picked a better option there. Or what other options could we have picked? I think one, we don't want to just praise on people for their status, like you're known as the best player, you're known as the best goalkeeper, you're known as the best winger, or whatever it is, and not praise just the status that we've given them, but praise the effort that they're putting in. And maybe asking players at the end of every game, where are you at now? Are you giving 10 out of 10 in that practice, in that game? Are you 7 out of 10? Are you 5 out of 10? Do you think there's anything that you could have done better or worse? And that'll really help protect them. Not let them get, overconfident within the team that they're in, but also keep them like level for when they decide to go somewhere else too. Because I mean, the goal really isn't to reduce talented players. That's not what we want to do, really. We want to kind of protect them and make sure they've got everything that they need as a player to keep going forwards and develop and progress where they want to progress. But also, being the best player should be exciting. It should be nice. It shouldn't be exhausting. And I think that sometimes the amount of pressure that can be put onto some young people can really be damaging. Yeah, it can really exhaust them. Mentally, it can really exhaust them. Children have so many different things that are going on. Like at the moment, GCSEs are going on. The amount of teams. In fact, I was supposed to be refereeing today. I know there's a host of games that are all on the WhatsApp groups that I've been looking at that are not going to go ahead. And the main reason is teams can't feel that the players, they're just not available, because especially for those age groups where they've got things like SATs and they've also got GCSEs and other exams that are also coming in, or A levels also. They've got other things that are going on. There's a lot of pressure in their lives already. What we don't want to do, clearly, is we don't want to be adding more pressure through football, which should be, maybe a bit more structured, maybe a bit more competitive at the older age groups. for where they are doing GCSEs. I don't think SATs are too bad, are they really? Although the amount of pressure that some kids seem to be under at the moment for SATs exams in year 6 seems to be over the top for me. But yeah, they've got so many things that are going on there that maybe we don't want to give them extra responsibilities and make them feel that they've got to be responsible for absolutely everything within the football game too. So yeah, look, let us know what your thoughts are on, having the best players in your teams. Like, how do we protect them? What can we do for those? Look, just add it to all of the comments. And obviously you can fetch us and find us on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music. You can find us on all those, but you'll also see us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also TikTok too. So you'll find us on all of those different platforms. But yeah, just put your comments in. But if you want to email in, you can do that at gofootballpod.g. I'll start again with that one. gofootballpod@gmail.com. You can get us on that one, send it comes straight through to me. And obviously any of those kind of comments that come in, maybe we can put those onto some future podcasts and let everyone know what everyone's thoughts are on best players and like best ways to manage best players. Do we manage their minutes? Do we manage in their attitudes? Are we managing, their performances? Are we managing how they react with the rest of the team? Let us know how you react with your best players and what you do with your best players too. So look, this one's always going to be a little short one. I've got a few extra little short ones that are also going to be coming out. Hopefully they'll be coming out over a few weeks. What I do want to say is just a big thank you for everyone that went and listened to last week's podcast about the facilities and just supporting Reese's petition. Obviously, the links are all in the last podcast. Go take a little listen to that one. But yeah, he's really passionate about it and he's made a few little videos and things like that. So I just want to say thanks to him for also supporting the podcast. And look, that's the end of the podcast for this week as well. But I will be speaking to you all next week. So look, have a great week. Have a great weekend. Keep it all grassroots and see you then.
While some squads are stuck in group chats listening to Keith ask when kickoff is, again, your squad is watching their own live commentary. They're watching themselves leapfrog the starting winger in the Squad Score League after a 3-assist Sunday. They're reading digital progress reports that look like they belong in the hands of a pro scout, but better, probably. Keep them keen and power your players with professional engagement. Look it up, squadgod.app.